Hey guys, welcome back to Mystifying Miracles. I'm Kristen and I have another great true story for you today that, of course, involves a miracle. This one today goes over somebody named Cecilia Sitchin. And she was known as the Miracle Child. Reason being because in 1987, she was the sole survivor of a plane crash. So stay tuned and we're going to dive right into this one. It was August 16th, 1987, when a Northwest Airlines Flight 255, it took off from Romulus, Michigan, and it was on its way to Phoenix, Arizona. But shortly after takeoff, the plane unfortunately would crash. That would make it one of the most deadliest airline disasters in U.S. history. And it's said that somewhere around 156 people, some reports said 154, some 156, but nonetheless, about 156 people perished that day, including 2 that were on the ground. However, there was one lone survivor. As I said earlier, that was 4-year-old Cecilia Sitchin. So on that fateful day, Cecilia actually had been traveling with her family, her mother Paula, her father Michael, and her 6-year-old brother David. And they were on the way back to Arizona from their summer vacation. Now, as their plane began to taxi onto the runway, it is said that the pilot and the co-pilot actually failed, most likely, to do all of their pre-flight checks properly. And due to this, the takeoff warning system was never turned on. It's also said after the fact, looking back, that the pilot and co-pilot were probably rushing through the pre-flight checks, and reason being, bad storms were moving into the area, so they were trying to avoid that, any delays, and they might have just been hurry, 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 and they might have just, like I said, rushing through everything, and you miss one little thing. Not so good, especially when you're flying. Now, all that miscommunication that most likely took place between the pilot and co-pilot, that turned deadly, obviously. And actually, it was the flaps that did not extend before takeoff. They're supposed to be, you know how when you're on a plane, you see the flaps up. They failed to do that. And I was reading, and the flaps, I know nothing about planes, but actually work as a lifting surface. So that makes sense. The plane starts rushing down the runway. It's about 8:46 p.m., reports say, and when it starts to lift, it only did so about 40 feet. Now, it should have been 600 feet. So that is a huge difference. And once it, started to lift at the end of the runway, it is said that the plane's left wing clipped a light pole. In addition, it also hit a rental car office. Then it went on for about a half mile further before it crashed down on the road. And when it did, it hit a vehicle that contained 2 people in it, and those people did die instantly. The car had actually been traveling on Interstate 94 bridge in Romulus, and that's where the plane kind of hit the road. It is said that everything such as wreckage, you could see food trays, magazines, luggage, and unfortunately, bodies that were just strewn all about for about a half a mile. And they said that all that, the luggage and everything you could see strewn about, that all occurred near the, or along the Middle Belt Road there in Michigan. Now, most folks believe that Cecilia survived due to her mother Paula sheltering her, like covering over her with her own body to shield her from anything that was going on. Cecilia did suffer several injuries. I mean, she had a fractured skull, a broken leg, a broken collarbone, and several third-degree burns. It is said over time that she had 4 skin graft surgeries, and most of those, it said, were on her arms and her legs. She was treated at Michigan Medical Center, and while she was there for about 7 weeks, she received an outpouring of love from the community and the nation. It is said she received somewhere near 30,000 get well cards and over 2,000 gifts. I mean, it was so overwhelming that her aunt and uncle, who kind of took over as her guardians, they had to give it out. So to local charities and whatnot, they had to give some of those gifts and everything away just because there was so much. Now, obviously, since she lost her family, her guardians, like I said, were her uncle. His name was Franklin Lumpkin, and her aunt Rita, who happened to be her mother's sister. And after that 7 weeks in the hospital, she finally got to leave with them. And due to just the press, the media, and just the outpouring of love, it was overwhelming, I'm sure. And they wanted to protect her and shield her from that because, think of it, she's a child, 4, and she lost everything she knew. So to shelter her, they ended up moving and raising her in Birmingham, Alabama. And in interviews, as she was older, Cecilia says she didn't even realize that she was the only sole survivor of that crash until she was like middle school or early high school age. And in addition to learning that at that age and going through puberty, all that stuff, that is also the time that survivor's guilt and anger set in. So she really had to work through that. But, the interviewers also asked her, if she was scared of flying, and Cecilia says no. She says that, the odds, they're astronomical that would happen again. So she really doesn't have any fear of flying, doesn't even think about it. And she's now married and she goes by the name Cecilia Crocker. And get this, guys, on her wedding day, a Romulus fire lieutenant by the name of John Theed, he actually showed up and went to that wedding. And the significance there is he kept in touch with her all these years, and he was the one that pulled her from the wreckage on that fateful day. It was him who, as he's searching through the debris, he heard just faint, muffled cries. And so he tried to find where that was coming from until he came upon a chair where he saw a little bitty arm coming up around it. And that was Cecilia. To this day, Cecilia still has many visual scars all over her body from the day of that crash. And of course, when she was an adult, she chose to do a different kind of scar, and that was a small plain tattoo on her left wrist. And she did that as just kind of a remembrance of what happened, what she endured, and where she came from. When she was at the age of 30, people actually did a documentary with her in it. And it went over like her story, what happened, her survival story, but it also had 3 other people that had survived other plane crashes. So it was a documentary on that. And that's all I could find. The latest on her is, I think, she's still married. The latest info I found, I do not know if she has children. I couldn't find that. But it looks like she's surviving, thriving, and happy. And what a story. Just one survivor, just a little 4-year-old girl. That is miraculous, I'd say. Let me know what your thoughts are. Were you alive and do you remember this story back in 1987? Or did you know about it? I actually had never heard of her or that flight or anything, and I would have been probably about 6 years old at that time, so that's probably why I was young. But yeah, great story. Thank you guys again for listening, watching, and just being a support. I do appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. And I am going to see you guys for the next one.